So good afternoon, everyone. After 14 months, I'm burdened by having to yet again explain the unbelievable amount of suffering and grief the Palestinian people have endured in the last year for crimes that member states have the clear responsibility of preventing, stopping, and punishing, among which is genocide. Today, the situation on the ground is catastrophic. The crisis in Gaza has become a global crisis that concerns all of us, and that's why I'm particularly humbled and honored today to stand before you with colleagues who are legal experts in their own domain and whose analysis captures equally critical aspect of this very deep crisis. But let me start by putting the occupied Palestinian territory in your mind again as it disappears from the news. In Gaza, more than 44,000 people have been ascertained killed by Israeli snipers and bombs, 70% of whom women and children from the beginning. More than 100,000 and counting are the wounded. Thousands are unable to be treated, let alone cured, for the most basic diseases. And if it was not enough, they will now have to go through the second winter living in makeshift camps without adequate food or clothing. The entire population of Gaza has been uprooted, and often multiple times. Hundreds of thousands have lost their homes forever. Children do not know if they will be able to get back to school. In the past 4 months alone, nearly 19,000 children have been hospitalized for acute malnutrition. Famine today is a reality, and this is all the more outrageous as we see humanitarian aid being blocked. In the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, militarized Israeli security operations, settlement expansion, evictions, demolitions, violence and threats of annexation are inflicting further pain and injustice on the Palestinians, who are subject to an unlawful and intensified shot-to-kill policy. It's nearly 800 the Palestinians who have been killed and 1,000 injured this year amidst ongoing restriction on their movement and access to basic services, livelihood and farmlands. What is how did we get here? Impunity. This is the key word to understand the barbaric scale of that the Israeli genocide has taken. Since its birth, Israel has never been held to the same standard as most of the members of the international community. Israel has defied countless General Assembly, Security Council resolutions, International Court of Justice advisory opinion, and has targeted UN personnel and facilities, and also declared personas non grata, not only me, but the Secretary General himself, without ever bearing consequences. There are never sanctions on Israel. Judicial processes are either ignored or circumvented, and trade continues, and diplomatic ties remain intact. Member states seem to be paralyzed, awestruck, many of them still normalizing the occupation, the repression of the Palestinian people, depicting their resistance in the territory that Israel occupies as terrorism, or at best as a tantrum of an unruly population incapable of abiding in silence to what the international community has decided as its fate. It is unconscionable to me that for many in the United Nations, Palestine continues to represent an issue to be negotiated, where the Palestinians have to accept sooner or later the status quo, their fight to self-determination reduced to a humanitarian crisis, and accept quietly the loss of their land, their failure to confront the imperialistic force of settler colonialism. As a human rights expert and as a human being, I have to stand against this. And amidst all of this structural injustice, I want to conclude with 3 main messages to ensure justice accountability. First, the halting of any direct or indirect arms transfer to Israel. Second, the revision of Israel credentials to be part of the United Nations to show that impunity will no longer be tolerated in this situation if it wants to fulfill its mission to preserve the security and peace for all. And third and last, resolving once and for all the question of Palestine in line with international law means 3 things: and the genocide now, and the occupation by September next year, because this is the deadline that the General Assembly has given Israel to comply with the International Court of Justice advisory opinion, which has ordered this year that Israel dismantles the occupation, the settlement, and the control over natural resources, totally and unconditionally, no exception. This means realizing the right of starting to realize the right of self-determination of the Palestinian people. Four, we need to understand and embrace once and for all that this is not a conflict. Conflict as a term is a misnomer here, because there is a settler colonial framework at play when we talk of Palestine. And I'm not using this language as an ideological slogan, but as a framework capable of accurately describing the reality in the occupied Palestinian territory that is becoming more and more catastrophic as the time passes. Thank you.